Alright. This is a run I did earlier. Pre-recorded. I had used to do these sort of pre-recorded runs. I only did 3 before, where I would do my best in the tower and then I would just comment over it. I did one for each weapon. Well, not each weapon. One for 3 different weapons. One for the sidearm. That was the first one. The second one I think was a carbine, and the third one was a spitmaw. It's been a really long time since I've done this. And I haven't been playing Returnal nearly as much, but Soros is coming out very soon, and I'm extremely excited about it, and that just got me more in the mood to play this again. So yeah, this one's for the Pyroshell caster. If you've seen any of the previous videos where I did this, basically I just refused to use any weapon except that one, other than my starting pistol. So I have the starting sidearm equipped now, the level 0, no traits, nothing, the sidearm. And until I find a Pyroshell caster, I won't switch weapons, and then from there I'll just switch to better Pyroshell casters as I, find ones that I prefer, and I'll just do as well as I can in the tower. Yeah, so just sort of partly refresh my own memory. This was a lot of me trying to remember the strategies that got that were most successful for me and things like that. One thing about the tower that is really important if you care about high score is to go for melee kills, especially when you're in the air. If you kill something with a melee in midair, you get a lot more points than if you were to just shoot them down with your weapon or like an multiplier or anything like that. It doesn't really matter that much early in these floors because my multiplier is so low, but once your multiplier starts getting up or maxed out at 100, it really does matter. I'm just doing it anyway because just get the points I can. Also, melees are just useful for a lot of enemies because it does one-shot them, no matter what, for some enemies. Basically all the small enemies and all the turrets. So far I haven't found a replacement for any sidearm, but I'm just going to keep going through it until I do. And yeah, you see me trying to shoot the weak point a little bit, although it looks like I gave up. If you can't kill something by meleeing it, shooting the weak point still does give you more points. And yeah, in rooms like this, yeah, this is not going well. That's me not paying attention to the mini-map to know when those guys are getting near me. In rooms like that, you really do want to take out the what are those guys called? Yeah, I missed that. Those are the damaged automatons. I forgot what they're actually called. They're not the automatons because those are the ones that stand up on 2 legs, but they're the the damaged ones, the ones that crawl on the floor. So yeah, taking those guys out fast is good because otherwise they'll just relentlessly keep crawling towards you. One thing about these runs, and that I'm starting to try to focus more on, is less worrying about the score to the degree, to beat the high score, at least for me, it would require me to, one, not limit myself to only a single type of weapon, especially probably not the Pyroshell. If I had to go for the top score, I'd probably use the carbine or the electropylon driver. At least the top score for myself. Not that I'm ever going to be the absolute top scores. I've seen how high the top scores get on the leaderboard here. They're insane. But for a personal best for myself, I'd probably use one of those two weapons. So there's that. But also, if I focus too much on melee kills, then it's basically I'm not even using my weapon anymore. And you'll see me in this run. I still go for melee kills quite a lot. But if a room is flooding me and there's a bunch of enemies I could kill with a melee kill, I'll still use my weapon to clear a lot of them out. Yeah, you see, I'm basically just ignoring weapons because I could tell by looking on the floor that wasn't the Pyroshell, the grenade launcher. And we'll get into it when we get to the Pyroshell, when I finally do get one in this run, which does happen eventually. Well, I think it takes quite a while. I think the Pyroshell is probably the strongest weapon for just homing attacks, which you wouldn't think because it's a grenade launcher, but 3 of its traits are basically just different forms of homing, although one of them's not, in my opinion, not very good. And I basically always avoid it because it kind of counters synergies with its other abilities. The bouncing projectile trait that the Pyroshell can get, I think, is quite difficult to use well. Especially, and I think it could be a lot better if the tower wasn't designed in such a way that once you get to phase 3 or higher, you have no ceiling anymore, basically, in most of the rooms, which makes the bouncing projectiles kind of hard to make them work, because they'll basically just bounce outside the arena unless, you know, you hit an enemy or something, and then they'll just go away, which is a problem. And it's anti-synergy with things like simmering explosion, with things like what's the other ability? Seeking flares. Neither of which I get in this run, by the way, but still, yeah, you will see like a bouncing projectile trait later in the run, which I elect not to take because I think bouncing projectiles just doesn't work on in the tower very well. So yeah, I'm blowing up those statues. I've mentioned this like a million times in other videos, but I blow up those statues because there's a chance for the Lamiodons, those flying bat-like enemies, to spawn out of them. So every enemy that spawns is just more points. So yeah, still no Pyroshell. So just keep going with the tower. And you see me, I'm gonna get hit a lot. I'm hardly the best player, like, at all, obviously. I'm quite, I think I'm pretty good at the game. I don't think there's a lot of room for me to play better. And, yeah, me switching the weapon back and forth there is just so my multiplier stays up a little bit longer. I switched weapon, but I switched back instantly. That's not me actually switching weapon, that's just me. I swear I'm not cheating, at least for my own self-imposed rules. That's just me trying to make sure my multiplier doesn't go down too much, or at all, if possible. Because yeah, even a multiplier 10, like, it doesn't really matter if I melee kill these guys for pure, like, the amount of points they give me yet, because again, once you're a full multiplier at 100, every kill's gonna give you 10 times more than it would be right now in the current spot in the run. Yeah, I've learned over time that these guys, yeah, I got hit there, but the Pyroids, I think is what those guys are called. One, they give you the most points in the game, but that's not what's important to keep in mind of them. It's that if you're gonna go for them and go for the teleports, one, be aware what you're gonna go back into. Every room you spawn into in the tower, basically every room, except maybe some of the very early rooms don't work this way, but basically every room, there's always like an initial wave of enemies, and then a secondary wave of enemies, a much harder enemy, like a big enemy, or sometimes a malformed enemy, that will spawn in later. Again, this is an earlier room, so I don't think this one worked that way. I think most of the things spawned right away. But the issue with that and the pilot enemy is that if you're going to go inside these rooms where these enemies kind of spawn in waves, and it kind of gives you time to take care of some of them before like the harder enemies show up. If you go for the Pyloid, the guy who generates the teleporter right away, and then you go in that room, you do what you get your little bonuses or whatever the room ends up giving you, and you come back. By the time you come back, basically everything is going to be spawned, because the timer for them spawning doesn't pause while you're in that room. So when you come back, everything's going to be in the room and you're going to be completely swarmed. So sometimes, if you can, either what I like to do is kill some enemies before I go in there. So I come back to, yeah, me getting hit a lot. So I come back to something that isn't quite as, you know, in my face and really dangerous. Yeah. Earlier you saw me, those little restrooms that had like 2 doors to choose from. One on the right, like, it's not this room, the room before this one, there was one on the right where it just took me to this room, and one on the left that I have to use a key for it. I did have keys, if you're wondering like why I don't necessarily use the key every time. The door on the right that doesn't take a key always leads to a combat room, whereas the door on the left leads to a disgorger that you had to use a key to get, and the next room is always a bonus item room. My thought in skipping them and not doing that is, one, early on in the tower, these rooms aren't that bad. Like, even though I'm getting hit quite a lot, like, they're not doing that much damage to me and all that. So it's a good opportunity to get my multiplier up without risking like all my health doing it. Even though I might get hit, it's not a big deal. So I can just keep, keep killing enemies because these lead to enemy rooms. And 2, I figure if I really need like the extra restroom, because sometimes those have health or things like that, it might be good to save those keys for when I need to use that room to avoid combat and maybe get like hopefully like extra health or something. And yeah, I ended up getting to floor 20, room 20, the fight with Algus without finding a replacement weapon. So I don't even have a Discorder right as of this moment, because like I said, I elected not to take that one opportunity that gave me one. I like not to use keys, so I'm just using this with the base gun right now. Unfortunately, that means it's going to take a while because the base pistols are quite weak. I mean, if you ever saw my video on, well, on the weapons generally, or where I did a pistol run, you'll know I think the pistol is actually a very good weapon, but the base pistol has 0 traits, and traits are what make weapons so good. Also, its stats are all a 0. So yeah, it's not good as is right now. You need a higher level weapon. But I do self-impose these things where I just refuse to use any weapon except either the base starting weapon or the weapon I'm doing for the run. So until I get a Pyroshell, which I haven't seen yet, maybe I missed one, but as of this point in the run, I hadn't seen one yet. It's so bright. Yeah, so just still pissed off. So sorry, the title of this video might be slightly misleading. Yeah, barely didn't get it there. Might be slightly misleading, but I promise I do eventually get a Pyroshell, and I use Pyroshells, either the one I get or later additional ones I find for the rest of the run. Until then, I just got to deal with this pistol. And then, yeah, the permanent malfunctions that Algus can give you is always, it's the most stress-inducing part for me. The 5th permanent malfunction you get is always the same one. So the 5th time you kill Algus in any run is always hostiles counter on hit. Which I don't think it used to be that way, but I think they made it that way because they recognize that that's like the worst malfunction to get. So it wouldn't be fair that some players got that and other players didn't. So they just started giving it to everyone. But I actually think there's other problems. Honestly, I think they should have just chosen 5 permanent malfunctions and made sure everyone got them, because or they should have balanced the other ones better, because some permanent malfunctions are way worse to get than others. Like ignoring hostiles counter on hit because you're guaranteed to get that one if you get high enough up the tower. There are 3 other permanent malfunctions that I think are 2 of them are pretty annoying, and one of them is really annoying. One where hostiles leave pools of acid is pretty damn annoying. One where hostiles explode in a short range, but still annoying. Shower bullets is pretty annoying, and like the worst one is when your melee cooldown is increased by 2 seconds. That really sucks, especially if you're trying to go for a high score. Like rooms like this where I'm trying to like dispatch all these small enemies really quick. If I had an extra 2 seconds in the melee cooldown, which is basically triple the melee cooldown, because melees take about 1 second, you can spam them about once every second. A 3-second melee cooldown is really bad. It would make like what I just did there, where I killed the ground one and then the air one. I wouldn't be able to do that. I would have to kill it and then like wait for a while and then kill the other one. And it just makes a huge problem. It also makes it much less likely for me to try to kill larger enemies with melee attacks, because I can't spam them down with melee attacks if they're close enough, because it just takes so long. I just hate the melee cooldown one so much. So every run I'm like really hoping I don't get that one. Like the best case scenario is if you don't get any of the 3 I mentioned, which is possible. Also, the execution rush is an amazing artifact. The 25% protection is really good, especially once you max out your protection stat at 50, and hopefully you get 1 or 2 parasites. You can't get 1 and 2. 1 or 2 parasites that also increase your protection. It basically means if you ever have the protection stat active from the melee, it makes your damage go down to a very small amount of damage. But it does require, because protection is sort of like an exponential, that might not be the right way of saying it, but like this, like 90% protection stat is a lot more effective than 70% protection stat. I don't know how the math of protection works. 100% protection does not protect you from 100% of damage, but even then, because I have gone into 100% before, there's ways to do it in certain short-lived circumstances, especially if you're using weapons like the carbine or like electropylon with the protection, with its protection trait. There's ways to get up to 100, but you can still take damage in those instances. But the damage you take, at least in I'm sure if the floor gets high enough, eventually it'll kill you anyway. The damage you take is really small, very much diminished. But if, like I said, if you're 90% protection, you would think that you're only taking slightly more damage based on that, but it's not. You still don't take a lot of damage at 90%. But once you start getting down to like 80 and 70% protection, higher level phases start doing really noticeable damage to you anyway. Like the game doesn't care. Because every time these enemies level up, which is every 10 floors in the first 2 phases, and then every 5 floors, every phase after that, every time they level up, they do more damage. All their attacks do, well, not all their attacks, almost every attack that the enemies can do more damage. Yeah, I don't know what's happening there. Like, I feel like it's like eating my melee, which is really weird, because these enemies don't usually eat my melees like that. Not like the drone enemies that I feel like are sometimes hard to land melees on. So yeah, it's just something to keep in mind about protection. Which is also part of the reason why I said if I was to actually go for a pure high score run, I would either go for the Carbine, because it has a trait that just can give you up to 15% protection, or no, 20% protection, I think, if you get the level 3. Sorry, like these are things I just used to know, and I forget them after so long, but yeah, it's 20% protection. 10 for a level 1 version of the trait, 15 level 2, and then 20 for level 3, unless I'm really forgetting how that works. The Carbine, you can just get free 20% protection, which is amazing, because like with the 50% protection stat that you can max out on, it takes you to 70 automatically, and then any other protection you get in addition to that, it starts pushing you into the you have extremely good protection territory, to the point where like enemies, something, I think those were like only 2 times it happened, but there was something like messed up about my melee there. But anyway, yeah. So that's about the Carbine. Electro Pylon Driver is another good weapon, at least for me, if I am only focused on getting the highest possible score. Again, unfortunately, because of and I do think it's unfortunate because the tower is so focused on getting melees to make your score much higher. You get so much more points for melee kills than you can do for just killing them with your weapon. Like I see people on the leaderboards that have significantly lower scores than me, or somewhat lower scores than me, but got to a much higher floor than I ever got, and it has to be because I just elected to do more melee kills than they did. But anyway, the Electro Pylon Driver, one very nice thing about it is it's a damage over time, and it's a damage over time that you can kind of control how strong it is, because if you attach a pylon to an enemy and then attach a pylon anywhere else, then that enemy will start taking, basically the full damage of the attack. However, which is fine. It can be decently damaging, and it allows you to wait around and be safe and like hide behind corners and stuff like that. But one thing it really also does is if you're like say in a room like this where you're trying to fish for a melee kill, although drones might not be the best enemies to do it. Yeah, I'm doing really bad right here. I use my large health to avoid dying. I don't know why I'm discussing all this about a weapon that I don't even have yet in this run. It's just I don't have the electric pylon either, so I'm just kind of meandering. If you attach a single pylon to an enemy, they won't take that much damage, but their damage will still start ticking, and will start multiply from going down. So you can basically just attach one pylon to any random enemy and just wait until you have the opportunity to get the melee kills for everything else. And also, the Electro Pylon does have also a way to increase your protection, although it's not as... You have to think about it a little bit, unlike the Carbine. Anyway, I'll try to stop talking about other weapons, because I'm still waiting for me to get the Pyroshell. Yeah, I'm getting hit a bunch here. Yep, taking more damage. Anyway, it's not a huge deal. Me taking all these... Like I said, early floors you're not taking that much damage, but it's not a good sign that I'm taking all these hits, because later floors taking hits like that will really hurt or just straight up kill me. Yeah, sorry you have to watch me blow up all these statues, but I can't help it. The off chance that there's an enemy hiding inside one, like that one, for example, so there's an enemy there. Fortunately, it's a little shy. But yeah, it's just more points, and slightly increasing my multiplier for killing it too. I really do want the melee kill. There we Yeah, I always go for the damage up rather than the integrity up, because the max damage up you get is 40%. So you only need 4 of them to max it out. And then once you max it out, they start replacing it with protection up, which is something I really want to max out as soon as possible. Yeah, that's the only reason why I go for damage first, because getting max integrity takes a lot longer than getting max damage, even with the free integrity upgrades the game's giving you. Because worst case scenario, you can get max damage basically after you clear the first 2 phases. So basically after you defeat Algus twice. Let's assume you don't get any max damage ups in any other source. You'll get one from the restroom in the middle, so floor 11, plus you can buy another one from the floor after Algus in every run. So you'll get 2 in phase 1 and 2 in phase 2, basically. And then you'll have max damage just like that, even if you don't get any other sources of damage up. But integrity just takes a lot longer to max out. And until you max out either integrity or damage, it'll be hard for you to see any protection up stats. And yeah, you can see, like, I'm trying to kill some of these enemies before I start going for this guy. Again, just because I want to go to a room that's slightly emptier than it would normally be. Yeah, I think there's like going to be an automaton waiting for me in that room. Yeah, it's kind of nice when these spawn enemies, because there's always 3 Lamedons that spawns, if it spawns anything, and it's just, you know, 3 basically free melee kills. Yeah, so I came back to this room. There's a bunch of Michael Morse now. Michael Morse aren't that bad. If you deal, for me, they can be pretty annoying because they teleport all over the place. Especially if I had a Silver Lattice, they're a lot easier to deal with, because then their slowdown attack doesn't slow me down anymore if I had it, but I don't have it. But one thing to keep in mind about, and which I don't always do a good job doing, but about Michael Morse is that, well, running into attack is one thing not to do. Their worst attack only happens if you stun them. And if I do stun them, then you want to kill them right away before they get out of their stun stance. So one thing, like a trap, if you're in a room with a lot of Michael Morse, is shooting a lot of them, and like stunning several of them, but not killing any of them. So your screen will just get filled with a million freaking bullets. Yeah, there's a few times I pause and run for unrelated reasons, but I'll cut them out, or I'll cut out most of the downtime between them. But yeah, so the Michael Morse, if you're going to engage with one, you're better off making sure you kill the one you're attacking. That's not true for every enemy. I mean, a lot of enemies do have attacks that they only do upon recovering from a stagger. Though some of them are more annoying than others. And I think another one that's pretty bad is the, I think it's called the Abyssal Strixia or something like that. It's like the or Strixia Matriarch might be what it's called. I forgot what it's called. I'm pretty sure it's that enemy, although I get confused between that one and another one. But it basically it also unleashes a large wave of bullets if you stun it. The one I'm thinking of. I'm not sure if it's the name I said. I don't think it's what I said, but either way. So yeah, it's just good to know that if you're gonna stun enemies, just be aware of what you're stunning and what might happen because you stunned it. Same for like some of the most aggravating enemies to deal with, because they do so much damage and they can hit you quite easily and fill the screen with bullets, is the yeah, I paralyzed these guys, so I can take my time looking around before I leave. Yeah, there's the Pyroshell, a pretty damn good one too. The auxiliary projectile I'll talk about later. But yeah, just be aware. And the Severed is what I was going to say. The Severed and the Frost Severed. If you stun the Severed or Frost Severed, they don't get an attack out of a stun, per se, but they get 2 new attacks. Well, the Frost Severed basically, I guess, 1 new attack, because the other attack's broken, doesn't do anything. But they get 2 new attacks. That make them a lot more relentless, and the one that really matters is the one where they teleport on your location to do a melee attack. It's easy enough to dodge on its own, but having them chase you around with that in a room full of other enemies and other shit you have to deal with can be pretty bad. So a lot of the times, if you don't think you can focus down like a Severed very quickly, it might be better to just ignore them for a while until you're ready to deal with it. Like maybe kill other enemies in the room, or ideally kill the other enemies in the room before the Severed spawn, because the Severs don't spawn right away. They're like the harder enemies that, in like most of the time, or basically all the time, they would spawn after the initial wave of enemies already spawned. But yeah, if you do get caught in a situation where the Severed are on the map and like the prior wave of enemies are still on the map, then just be aware that that can cause problems. Yeah, fix to prevent one malfunction, attach afterward, reduce proficiency, which proficiency doesn't really matter to me. I don't really care about that, because you reach max proficiency 45 so quickly anyway. The only reason why I took this one is because the downside of it didn't really matter to me. I don't really care about fixing preventing one malfunction. But yeah, so my weapon, I think this one has, well, it has auxiliary projectiles, which is like the main star of this weapon, but I think it also has sticky bonus and secondary explosion. And then I think the last one it has is, I forgot what it's called, but it's the one that lets it shoot straighter. I think it's a level 2 version of that. If it had a level 3 version of the one that lets you shoot straighter, it shoots in a completely straight line. Like, it doesn't have any arc on it anymore at all. And yeah, you can see, like, how quickly I killed that guy. And I was basically not even hitting him with the actual weapon. I was only hitting him with the auxiliary projectile. So this is why I feel like the Pyroshell is really good at homing. This one and then the Seeking Flares, which this weapon doesn't have, but are insanely good at hitting enemies around corners. Or just hitting enemies broadly. It has like a down effect, both of them, of hitting enemies you might not have wanted it to hit. Like you see, like I'm killing all of these Strixia enemies when I don't necessarily want to, because they're easy for melee kills. But either way, you know, give and take, right? It's kind of why I don't like that the tower focuses so much on melee kills. I'd rather that melee kills didn't give you bonus points, because then you could just focus on playing with your weapon, which is more fun than fishing for melee kills all the time. But yeah, so you can basically like shoot at weird angles, and the auxiliary projectiles will curve around corners and stuff. I mean, they don't purposely curve around corners, but they tend to go straight for a while before they curve. So you can curve them around corners and around like hiding spots to hit enemies. And then Seeking Flares, which this doesn't have, you can just stick it on a wall, and the explosion will cause additional projectiles to come out and seek enemies. Again, I don't have Seeking Flares, but you can see how much more damage I'm doing now that I have like a proper weapon. But the Seeking Flares is just very strong. I think it's level 3 Seeking Flares, so it's extremely strong. Other really good traits for this weapon in terms of just pure DPS would be, which I don't have right now, Streamlined Chamber, which just makes it fire faster, because for obvious reasons that's just really good. It makes it fire much faster potentially. Seeking Flares, like I said, is also very good. Simmering Explosion, which I don't have, is extremely strong too. It does a lot of damage wherever your thing explodes. It just leaves like a cloud of damage for a while. Hostiles Explode on Death is what I just got, which is... It's not great. It's not the worst one. I'd rather have this over enemies leave pools of acid. So it's not... Like, so far the malfunctions I'm getting are fine. It's a melee cooldown one that I just really don't ever want to get in any run ever. Especially if you have like the Electro Pylon driver, because like that, especially if you're using a lot of melees to even kill bigger enemies, the Electro Pylon driver has a way to basically double your melee attack, and if you triple the cooldown on that, that's kind of anti-synergy. Well, of course, the anti-synergy is malfunction, but it just makes it a lot harder. Okay, stop talking about other weapons. Alright, yep, this is one of the floors that has enemies, but there's no timer on you, so yeah, I missed that guy. You can take your time with the floor. So might as well go for all melee kills. Especially since enemies on this floor are always one-hit kills. One-hit melee kills, I should say. And there's always a health item on the top right, which luckily I already have a small health, so it's not going to take up an extra inventory slot. Yeah, so getting pretty good points. I mean, right now, 9 million points, best is 247. Like I said, I'm not really focused on points as much as I used to be, especially since, like, you know, I'm doing this to force myself to use a weapon more so than I am to, like, make it my absolute best attempt at the tower at all. Even if I did, I'd be hard-pressed to beat that score because I'm not as good as I used to be. I have not played this game enough to keep my like awareness and like decision making and things like that in terms of like what enemies to prioritize, what attacks we looking out for. I'm not as used to constantly checking the minimap, which is very very useful, especially for like enemies that can teleport around or enemies that can jump up and down cliffs and kind of ambush you from behind. So like checking the minimap is very useful for that. So yeah, it would take me a while to get to that point again. Mostly, like I said, just playing this game because Source is coming out in about a month, and I'm very, very excited for that, and it's got me in the mood to play this. Just getting the melee kills. You can see like the explosion, the exploding shots that come out of enemies when they die isn't really a big deal. Most of the time, if you melee kill them, you're not going to get hit by it anyway, and I think that's because melee attacks have a brief invulnerability period to them, similar to like a dodge. I've still gotten hit after meleeing them, but it's pretty rare. And if you really don't want to get hit after meleeing them, you can dash away as soon as the melee connects, if that's what you're worried about. I think I actually passed on this one. It has Seeking Flares, but the enlarged chamber is what makes me not want to take it. Mainly because unless... Well, I don't think you can actually do both. I think Enlarged Chamber and Streamlined Chamber are the same tier of power-up, so you can't have both. But unless you can get through your clip fast on the Pyroshell, I don't really want to take it. I'd rather be reloading frequently because overload projectiles, or disrupting overload, I think is what it's called actually. Sorry, disrupting overload, which makes it so that your gun can pierce shields as long as you, like in the last 10, 15, might be 10 seconds, I'm not really sure, have recharged your gun, is very useful. You won't be, I think I already have the artifact, and you won't really be seeing me use it that much yet, but eventually in the run I'll start using it more and more to force enemy shields to break. Without me having to go up to them and use like a melee attack or a mine or like the shield breaker power, or basically any other option to melee to break their shields. I won't have to do it as much because I'll have overload projectiles, which is very useful, especially to stop my multiplier from going down. And also for just dealing with enemies in tricky locations. Stop yourself from getting overwhelmed. So anyway, yeah, that's the main reason why I didn't want that gun. Even though it's a much higher level and it has some really good abilities. I think it had Seeking Flares too, which is very strong. But it didn't have auxiliary projectiles. And I have auxiliary projectiles 3, so auxiliary projectiles 3 is also very strong. And more instantaneous. Yeah, I killed enemies too fast. It's more instantaneous, so like Seeking Flares has a small delay because you have to wait for the projectile to explode before the Seeking Flare starts. And auxiliary projectiles, at least, like it's as soon as you fire the gun, like the shots come out, the extra homing shots. It's actually something I tend to prefer. Most of the time, I tend to want a gun that reloads quickly. When I say quickly, I mean runs out of its clip pretty fast. Mainly only because of the disrupting overload artifact. There's also the like the secondary fire cooldown reduction when you recharge a gun, which is useful. But it's not the main reason why I would want a quick recharge. It also makes things like the Coil Spine Shredder or the Rock Landlobber very good for shredding shields if you have the artifact, because under the default version, unless you have certain traits, they only get one shot, so they reload after one shot. So you're basically always in shield break mode. Yeah, I'm just waiting. I think I get hit anyway. Yeah, I got it anyway. Even though I could take all the time I wanted. At least Resonant Shield is coming into play. I bought Resonant Shield early. I'm pretty sure I bought it this run. I'm pretty sure I bought it when I saw it. I don't normally buy artifacts unless it's one of the last artifacts I need to basically have like my completed artifact list. Basically, like I think it's like 15 artifacts you're allowed to carry. The 15 artifacts I think are the most useful, which can slightly change between runs, but normally, like, there's some I'll never not take. Like, you know, Resonant Shield I'll always take. The melee cooldown, melee dash speed increase and defense increase I'll always take. Silver Lattice I'll always take. Most of them I'll always take. There's a few that I could swap between them. I am almost, or I'm just about 5% of the score I need in order to reach my personal best. Obviously, that's going to go up faster and faster, although higher tower levels, I also tend to get melee kills less often. So the multiplier going up is offset by the fact that I am, at times, shooting a lot more and melee killing a lot less. And yeah, so I just left that room to go here. So that does mean I'm now gonna have to deal with those two, like, Arcanac, the big the giant square-like enemies. Yeah, there's one behind me and there's one right in, like, at the other end of that bridge. Which sucks. And like, yeah, these are not the worst flying enemies to melee. I think the worst flying enemies to melee are the drones, and well, the drones are second worst, and then the Aetheract. Basically, the small versions of the enemy you see in the sky, because they fly so damn high. Like, I basically stop trying to melee them unless they're right in front of me. The Lamiodons are slightly harder, are kind of hard to melee kill because they take evasive maneuvers basically. And then the easiest flying enemy to melee kill is a gyropod. They tend not to fly too high. They don't have any weird hitbox shenanigans like the drones do. Like, the drones don't tend to fly that high most of the time. That one is, but they don't tend to fly too high. But the problem is, like, unless you're lined up with them correctly, your melee attack's gonna miss them for some reason. It's just the way their hitbox works. And I guess Housemarque never changed that, so. Or the way their hitbox works. So here's a restroom. Oh, well, here's the intermission room. So yeah, I'll always buy the protection now that's here. I tend not to buy other things, like I said, because I'll get them anyway. And buying integrity is like, integrity, increasing your max health is good, but also it's also a heal. So like, you might as well let yourself get them as you get them, so that you can get like a free heal out of it. I don't really need it now anyway. That's not why I'm not taking it. I just don't want to spend the money. Yeah. Dreadbound. Spitmaw, right. Yeah, any Pyroshell I'll come across, I'll basically consider it unless it has bouncing projectiles. If it has bouncing projectiles, it's basically like a non-starter. Like, you see, like, I am going out of my way to kill all these guys, even though they're decent. Actually, the Strixie are a decent melee kill flying enemies too. Even though they're decent melee kill enemies, I'm going on my way to kill them anyway, because I don't want to come back to a room. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't want to come back to a room with like 1 million enemies. So I'm just killing a bunch of them at the cost of potential points. Yeah, I don't know why I use that item. I use the shield not really realizing that. I guess in my head I was just automatically going through the motions of using the item before I picked it up, thinking it was a shield item, even though that's always a key item. I don't know. I wasn't thinking. Yeah, you can see I'm trying not to kill everything with my gun, but I am still doing it. So like, I'm getting some points for the melee kills, but I'm not getting as many points as I could be. Yeah, I'm getting it a lot. Parasites. It's always scary. that one's not too bad. But this one is a lot, like, the one on the right is basically just like a free, good upgrade. One for your kill to increase your adrenaline is very good, and suffering damage from long falls, you almost never have to. It doesn't come into play much, and if you are going to take a long fall, just dash before you hit the ground or something. I mean, sometimes I mess up and I take the hit anyway, but it's something you can control for. It's something that can basically never affect you if you're careful. Yeah, you can see I'm trying very hard to get melee kills this time because, I don't know, this seemed like a pretty generous room where, like, the enemies that are around are not too bad. The turrets are one of the easier type of turrets. I think the easiest turret to deal with is the frost turret, especially if you have a silver lattice. But it basically never hits you as long as you're moving at all, as long as you're not dashing directly towards them. But the Atropian turret's not too bad either. Yeah, I'm still electing not to take the side door. Because like I said, unless I'm like in a really dire situation, I try to avoid. At least lately, I've been just being like, well, let me not bother. Yeah, I launched my mines hoping they would reach them, because if the mines had exploded on him, then they would have broke the shield, but they didn't reach, so they didn't explode. So now I'm basically just trying to recharge. Well, I should be. If I can get my gun to recharge, then they'll start breaking shields. If I'm smart, I would be thinking of that and just forcing my my gun to. I guess I'm not making the conscious decision so much. And like, yeah, because that happened right there. Now both enemies are shielded, and I have no way to like stop my multiplier from going down until just now. So yeah, I lost a little bit of multiply there. It's not a big deal. Okay, an obelite room. You know, you also get, 1 point per obelite times the multiplier, so up to 100. Yeah, it's a very strong one. Void B1 is pretty weak. The enlarged chamber, I don't want it. I think I pass on this one too. Actually, I know I do. Yeah. It's a much higher level. Its stats are maxed out. It's stats, not its traits. But I just really don't want enlarged chamber. At least, and maybe it would be a better choice anyway, but enlarged chamber scares me. Even though I'm not really using the disrupting overload to get rid of shields. I should be, and I know that I should be, and I know that if I was using it, it would be useful. I'm always happy when I spawn in a room and I see turrets. And yeah, these are the easiest turrets. Yeah, 200 health for those guys. So without any like increase to your melee damage, it's 4 hits. So because you need 4 in order to break 200 damage, 240 in that case. But you still get extra points for killing them with a melee attack while you're in the air, or on the ground. But you get more if you're in the air. So that getting hit with that was very silly. Although in my defense, I didn't realize that the wave attack that any enemy in the room had a wave attack. I mean, I had plenty of time to react to it, but yeah, I didn't realize that his malformed like extra attack was the waves spawning around him. The severed, I mean. Yeah, you can see I'm just like not even trying to get the melee attacks. If I had the electro pylon driver, maybe. Although this room is tricky because I find more difficulty finding cover in this room. Honestly, like practicing specific room strats is probably a good way to get a lot better. Like, what do you do if you're in this room? Like, what are the... And it's enemy dependent. Yeah, you can see there I stopped dodging. I stopped dodging halfway through that attack because I remembered the Frost Sever's version of that Blade Beam attack doesn't do anything. It doesn't hit you at all. Anyway, yeah, practicing like where to hide in rooms would probably be really good. Like that room I just came from, the central pillar is probably a good spot to be next to if you're worried about taking damage. Generally, like being next to a wall of any kind is helpful. As many walls as you can get. That way, you know, most enemy projectiles can't reach you. But yeah, the more open rooms make that a little trickier, especially the ones where you can easily walk off of them and fall off. At least for me, I tend to fall off of maps more than I should be. Yeah, so I don't have much to say about Algus. Algus, like, sometimes, you know, I do get hit on Algus, but Algus's damage is a lot less than, like, the tower enemies themselves, which I don't think it should be that way, but it is that way, because Algus's damage does not scale up fast enough. Like, all enemies are getting 4 damage increases a phase, Algus is getting 1, and Algus's damage increases are not enough to make up for the fact that it only happens once. Plus, you know, you can get really good at dodging Algus's attacks. There's no other enemies that spawn in this room. Algus doesn't get more complicated than this version. Actually, no, sorry, this is the Form 3 version, but there's one slightly more complicated version, the Infinity Form that you fight on 4-4 onwards. But its attack patterns are basically the same as this one with slight changes. And changes to damage numbers, but again, the damage numbers aren't enough. So basically, yeah, I don't have much to say about Algus when I'm fighting them, because it's the same fight every time. I still enjoy it. It's kind of fun to just dance around it and do them, but it's not very hard. Anyway, there's a permanent malfunction. Melee cooldown increased by 2 seconds. This is the worst one, in my opinion. Possibly there could be an argument. I mean, okay. Hostiles counting on hit, I think, is actually the worst one. But you're forced to get that one, so I don't count that one. You're going to get that one no matter what. On the 5th time you defeat Algus. This one, I think, is the worst one, with possibly I can see an argument for thinking hostiles leave pools of acid on death being worse. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I would prefer hostiles leaving pools of acid than my melee cooldown being increased by 2 seconds. So yeah, I really didn't want this one. So yeah, my hostiles exploding death and melee cooldown, it's not the worst pull in the world. If I get hostiles leaving pools of acid, that would actually be the worst. And yeah, I just tried to melee and got knocked back while doing it, so now I can't melee again for 3 seconds. Yeah, that's the problem when things like that happen. So yeah, you really want to make your melees count if they're gonna have like such a big cooldown like that. Again, my mines keep missing. I think I overshot those ones. But if the mines are connected with the shield, then I would have broke the shield. Not a great room, despite because that one's supposed to be pretty easy. The first room after every boss is not. There's like never any. I don't think there's ever. If there's an enemy room, which I don't think it always is, there's never like a tough spawn to it. Like there's not like a big enemy or a malformed enemy that spawns from that. I think like the biggest enemy you get are basically those Kerberonics, the larger dogs that I was fighting. I think that's basically as large as the enemies get. Yeah, I was considering like melee killing these guys, but I was like, oh god, my cooldown's so slow at that. Forget it, just kill them. Another parasite room. Suffering damage picking up items sucks. However, hostiles leaving behind pools of acid on death is not something I want, so I actually end up taking this one. So now every time I pick up an item, it's gonna hurt. The damage it does to you is kind of negligible. The bigger problem is that it eats your shield. Yeah, and on some unlucky, if I can't, yeah, I was trying to DPS this guy down, but I realized it's not gonna happen. I need to destroy that tower first. But yeah, the picking up items, it doesn't hurt you if you pick up an item when you buy it. Well, okay. If you buy an item and you have room for it, and I make this mistake in this run where I buy an item, like an artifact, when I have no room for it, so then I destroy the artifact and then I pick it up. So I destroy an artifact in my inventory and then I pick it up, that will still hurt you. But if you pick up an item by buying it, and it goes straight into your inventory as soon as you buy it, I don't think you take any damage for doing that. And then you also don't take any damage for picking up resin or, like, Silphalum, basically the health items. Every other item you can pick up, a gun, an artifact, an item, any item like a Disgorger, will hurt you, as long as you don't pick it up through a shop. Same with like permanent upgrades, like integrity upgrades or protection upgrades, because you always get those from fabricators, shops basically. Those don't hurt you either. That was a pretty good floor, I think. Still using the same gun. I mean, it's a pretty strong gun, but it could be quite a bit better. Especially since, like I said, enemies getting stronger very frequently now, and their health can get to the point that, like, so guns that would basically nuke the last boss of the game, like the base game, or previous floors of the tower. You then have to like really start unloading entire clips into certain enemies out there. There's the mine actually did what I was trying to get it to do, break the shield. So yeah. Even if a gun looks really strong at one point in the tower lane, I think this one is still performing actually quite well. I'm not even aiming well, but the auxiliary projectiles do the job. Also, the explosion radius is really big on the gun, and it's only going to get bigger if I upgrade it, since explosion radius is one of 3 stats that goes up for this gun. Still, a better gun would be nice. Yeah, you can see the explosion radius when I take the time to aim. Yeah. I used a shield because I had max shield items of 5. And then I picked up the item to go back up to 5 shields. And then I took damage getting rid of this shield, completely nullifying the interactions, completely useless interaction, because I'm taking damage whenever I pick up an item. And yeah, that's another thing. Like, so every single time that happens, that's one shield less than I have, because that's a resin. That one's fine. That one actually gives me a shield because of the resin shield. But there's so many shields that I potentially don't get because of the stupid picking up items hurts me. And the higher you get in the tower, the more shields are going to matter, because more and more and more enemy damage is going to go higher and higher and higher to the point that it's just going to be crazy. Okay, this is a really good weapon. It has Streamline Chamber 3. Which is amazing, and it still has auxiliary projectiles. It has Tracker Swarm, which I think is probably better than the mine. The fact that it fires off its 6 shots so quickly means I can reload pretty quickly, which means my shots can start piercing shields much faster. Really what I should be doing is emptying my clip before I leave a room, or as soon as I enter a room, so that my shield piercing like starts right away. Yeah, again, you can see I'm trying to be deliberate about not killing every enemy in the room. But then I miss like that, and yeah, the longer this takes, the more crazy this gets, the more enemies start showing up, and so eventually I just start firing like crazy because I know that the Severed are in the room now, and I'm just like, shit, I don't want to be dealing with the flying enemies and the Severed. And then if I stun one of the Severs, which I may have already done, I don't think I stunned the Severed yet because I haven't teleported on top of me. But if I stun one of the Severeds, then I'm gonna have to deal with their teleportation attack, which is fine on its own. But if those Strixie were still alive, like sometimes it can get you in a really bad situation where it's gonna be hard not to take damage. Anyway, yeah. So a lot of points I didn't get in that room, partly because this melee cooldown, largely because of the melee cooldown. Yeah, you can see, like, my damage on this gun is high enough that these drones can just die whether or not I destroy that healing tower. God, auxiliary projectiles is really strong. One thing, to note, yeah, picking up the Disgorger hurts, or it eats a shield, sucks. One thing to note, I don't use aim assist. I do play on the PS5 with a controller. I don't like aim assist anyway. It feels I'm not really sure what I was checking there. It feels I prefer my shots go where I aim them, and I'm fully aware I would be playing better if I used aim assist, but I just don't like how it feels. So a lot of times my shots will just completely miss if I'm not taking the time to aim down the sights. I think I aim down the sights. Well, I definitely, that's a pretty good item. I aim down the sights a lot, because like this, because it's just a lot easier to aim, and because of this, because I don't have aim assist, I just rely on that so much to hit enemies, which means I'm moving slower when I do that too. But I just like the way it feels. I think the game's more fun that way, for me at least. But then it also means like traits that have homing, like the homing missiles from the pistol, or like all the homing traits that the Pyroshell cast or whatever my grenade launcher has. They feel kind of more special now because homing isn't. I know aim assist and homing aren't the same thing, but they functionally do the same thing. You don't have to try as hard to hit the enemy. You can do roughly look at the enemy, and the aim assist will do the rest of the work for you. But now, because I'm not using that, when I do get actual homing traits, it's like a really powerful thing that I didn't have before. Especially this one, like you can see it's just going around corners and stuff. I don't even have to reveal myself. I mean, I am doing it anyway because I'm not thinking, but like I don't have to reveal myself. I can just shoot around the corner, and the things will very likely just curve and get the shot for me. I do know that Soros, I'm pretty sure Soros has, when you're not aiming down the sights, most guns have like a lock-on feature, which I don't think is aim assist. I think this is just a mechanic of the game. If you're not aiming down the sights, most guns seem to have a lock-on feature, where a very generous lock-on feature where they'll just lock onto enemies. Whereas when you're aiming down the sights, I think that doesn't exist. I think is what I heard. But I think when you're aiming down the sights, like you have more control over the shot and potentially more deadly shots, or at least for situationally more deadly. And I'm fine with that. I mean, if Soros does also have aim assist, I'm definitely turning that off. But if they have like this lock-on feature for guns outside of, I mean, if that's the game, that's the game. I'll play it that way. And I'm pretty sure the way Soros works is that all guns have primary and secondary fires, and I don't mean secondary fire like how I have my tracker swarm or my mines. I mean like a proper secondary fire that's not on a cooldown. And so like the secondary fire is the one you get for aiming down the sight, whereas the primary fire is the one you get for not aiming at all. And that'll be interesting. Very, very excited for Soros. Can't wait to play it. I was originally worried about the difficulty of Soros. Because I know Housemarque is aware that a lot of people didn't get through Returnal because they found Returnal, very punishing, very hard, and it's a hard game. And so I think Housemarque, pretty sure they said as much, that they took a lot of efforts to make it feel like every run has you're getting stronger no matter what. Whether you win or lose, you get stronger. So that even if you lose a run or you die, you'll come back stronger, which I think is like kind of pseudo the tagline for Soros. I would argue in Returnal you get stronger very often whether you win or lose anyway, but you do that through weapon traits. If you don't take the time to unlock new weapon traits, you're not going to ever find the broken weapon traits. Now, I guess that there are guns in weapon traits that completely trivialize runs in Returnal. Granted, Celine herself doesn't start off with those strengths. Other than the few permanent progressions you get, some of like the traversal stuff and like the extra item slots you get, you don't start with them. However, I would still count that as permanent progression because like the purpose of a permanent progression is to make the game easier without you as a player having to get better at the game. And weapon traits 100% do that. If you're using the Spitmaw Blaster, for example, and then you get Rapid Spitter, which allows the Spitmaw Blaster, the shotgun, basically to fire in full auto mode. if you get the version 1 of that, the full auto mode, just holding down the trigger, is basically as fast as it would go if you were just spamming the trigger anyway, because it's capped at a pretty slow speed. So that's the one version of it. However, as soon as you get the Rapid Spitter 2 version on the shotgun, suddenly it's actually its fire rate is like double. It's insanely fast, and that's just one trait for one gun. And so like that's what I mean. That Returnal, I guess people didn't, in my opinion, some people who drop it probably don't realize how the permanent, in my opinion, this counts permanent progression, how it works, and how you can definitely make the game easier for yourself by doing that. That being said, that's a long way of saying, in Soros they have very deliberate permanent progression that's very obvious to the players. I think you have like a whole like progression tree that you get for resources after you die or after you finish a run, whether you die or not. Which I have no problem with. I'm just making the argument, in my opinion, that Returnal has permanent progression, and the permanent progression is very powerful. It's just not conventional permanent progression. But yeah, so in Soros, like when it does come out, I'm sure. What I was saying is I was worried about the difficulty, not because of permanent progression. I don't know why I went on that whole tirade, but because they wanted to make the game more accessible, which I'm all for. Like I think accessibility in games is really good. Like I don't want someone to be gated out of playing a game just because they're not willing to put in like the hundreds of hours that I'm willing to put into the game. But if they really like the game, they like the atmosphere, they like the, you know, maybe they like the story of Returnal, or they like the atmosphere, they like the shooting, they just think it's a fun game, but they think it's too hard, and then they drop it because of that. I think that is a shame, and making it more accessible is a good thing. But that being said, I was worried that they were going to make it easier, essentially, to the point that, other than doing challenge runs, like purposely restricting myself, that I wouldn't be able to find like a good difficulty of the game. And I guess that's sort of true, but they did it in a way that I think is good. Because I know that Soros has slight spoilers for mechanics that's part of their advertising material, and I guess I already done that already. But like, it's not real spoilers. It's just like mechanics spoilers that they already, in the trailers for Soros, they already said it works this way. But they have like modifiers that you can apply to make the game both easier and harder. And the way they advertised it was saying like it always has to be in balance. Meaning if you put on like 5 points worth of easy modifiers, you need to have 5 points worth of hard modifiers or about that. Otherwise, it won't let you do the run. Like if you put on all the easy modifiers that like give you more health or do more damage, I don't know what the modifiers are, I'm just making them up. Like more health or more damage, you make more money or X, Y, Z, or maybe certain tough enemies don't show up. Whatever the modifiers are, I have no idea what they are. Then you also have to balance it with hard modifiers that, you know, maybe they make your shield not work as well, or your dash is worse, or whatever. You have to balance it. But I saw an interview by one of the people who got to go to their studio, play 3 hours of the game, and I saw an interview with one of the developers. I should know the people's names. Sorry, I don't. Whoever did it, but and the developer mentioned that, you know, they were mindful of people who were put off by Returnal's difficulty, but they also wanted to keep an eye on people who really like the difficulty of the Returnal, and they want something like that kind of experience from the second game. Which, you know, in that case, for me, I fall into the second camp. Like I don't want an easy experience per se. Like I want the game to feel hard, which I think Returnal definitely did. Like the first time I played it, and the first time I got through all the biomes in the base game, I thought it was hard. Like at this point, I don't think it's very hard because I'm very used to them. But first time playing is most important. Anyway, they said they were going to keep in mind for those people, and what he actually said is the difficulty modifiers, the ones we can make it easier and harder and keep it in balance. The hard ones, according to him, and he's a developer, so I would trust what he says. You can actually turn all of them on without having to worry about turning on the easy ones. I don't think he per se said that, but he said if you want, you can turn on all the hard modifiers and just go like that. And he said like that makes the game extremely hard, in his opinion, harder than the Returnal, which I was very happy to hear. Assuming the hard modifiers aren't like anti-fun modifiers, like restricting your ability to do certain things. We'll see what they are. Like, you know, if there was a modifier in this game that took away your grappling hook, for example, I think that would be like not a good modifier to give you because it basically just limits what the player is allowed to do. But like modifiers that make enemy attacks more punishing or make enemy patterns harder or just, you know, you do less damage, things like that I'm fine with. And being able to turn on all the modifiers, I think is really, really cool. So yeah, definitely looking forward to Soros. And the first time I play Soros, I'm just going to play it like normal. You know, I'm going to use every advantage the game gives me. I'm going to engage with all the mechanics, like all the balance modifier system. I'll try all that stuff out. I'm not looking for like a challenge when the first time I play Saros, or I'm probably been pronouncing it wrong. I think it's Saros probably. But you know, if I like the game as much as I'm pretty sure I'm going to be playing it quite a lot. And I'm assuming there's not going to be an endless mode, at least not on release, because like this mode Tower Sisyphus didn't exist until I don't know how long it was, maybe a year or so after the release. I don't know. I actually don't know how long. But this was like free DLC they added later. I hope they do that for Saros if it isn't like that on release, but I don't know. Or even better, maybe they'll start with the endless mode. I'm not gonna bet on it though. But that does mean at the very least the campaign, like going through the biomes, will have a good difficult way to get through it, which I'm very looking forward to. Also, if they do add an endless mode to this game, not this game, Saros, assuming they don't start with one, or even if they do, if there's an endless mode in Saros at release or some point in the future, I really hope this melee thing is gone. I don't like that melees. Okay, I want melees to be in the game. I don't like that melees give you more points, and especially not drastically more points than getting a kill with your weapon. I think it encourages boring playstyles and makes certain weapons better at it than others. So like I just really hope that if there's a point-based endless mode, which I'm reasonably confident there will be eventually, if not at release, which I doubt it's going to be released, but I'm reasonably confident that there will be eventually. I hope that points are not based off of melee kills. Or at least I hope they're not. I hope they don't push you to get melee kills, because I don't like that. I have all these cool weapons in the game. I want to use a weapon. I want to just be able to use a weapon. And if that makes you really strong, if it gives you a power trip during the first few floors, in this case floors, of like the Tower Sisyphus, so be it. Eventually it's going to get really hard and overwhelming, and you're going to die eventually anyway. Although I have heard, I'm pretty sure in Returnals, Tower Sisyphus are people who basically go on forever, and then they just end the run on their own terms. But those people are really good. I'm definitely not that good. Also, I'm pretty sure there's a glitch that you can do with cooldown reduction that can basically make your alt fire cooldown 0 seconds, essentially, so it's always active. But ignoring that, which I would not do, because I think that's a boring way to play. I mean, it could be fun for like experimentation, one thing, but I would not put myself on a leaderboard doing something like that, because I think that's boring, where you have infinite alt fire. And if you have infinite alt fire, you would probably just want to use it with things that aren't like channeling one. So you don't want to do it with a void beam. You wouldn't want to do it with probably not even like the ball lightning one. I forgot what it's called. But you would want to do it with something like horizontal barrage. I'm having trouble finding the enemy. Horizontal barrage or tracker swarm, and just being able to spam those ad nauseum would make your damage go crazy. Which surprised Housemarque didn't patch. Maybe they did patch it out, but as far as I know, they never patched that out. So if you know how the glitch works, you can exploit it. I don't actually know how it works, but I'm not honestly interested in finding out. I'd rather just not do that. But yeah, I know like the best. There are a lot of people above me on the leaderboards that are just that are above me because they just play the game better than I do. A lot of them. And I'm very happy with my position on the leaderboard. I think back when I was playing this game a lot, like back when I was making videos for this game pretty regularly, and I really took seriously trying to like learn enemy attack patterns, learn what works, learn how weapon chase works, and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm happy with how it went. But at the same time, that was me like fishing for melee kills hard, which is why I really don't want those melee kills. A long way, the 30-minute tangent of me saying I really hope that melee kills are not encouraged, or at least not encouraged through a point system. I think Returnal already encourages to get melee kills because there's a lot of enemies that die to one hit in melee. So if you're a very good player, I think you will get melee kills for a lot of enemies anyway, a lot of the time. Especially since, like, the counter on hit thing doesn't activate if you get a melee kill. There's a lot of reasons to use melee kills, and also, like, to destroy shields. I like the game encouraging you to use melee that way. I don't like the game encouraging me to use melee because you're just going to get, like, 5 times, like, up to, like, 5 times the points for killing an enemy with melee, depending on the enemy you kill. That I don't like. I don't know why I'm complaining so much about this. Like, Returnal's an amazing game, and I'm complaining about a free DLC that they didn't update to the point that that passes every criteria for a perfect tower run that I would like to see. But yeah, I'm just talking about it because, you know, I like the game. I'm just thinking about, like, things I would love to see in like a future. Because Soros is basically, I'm treating it like a sequel to Saros. I'm treating like a sequel to Returnal. So if they ever get to that point where they do an endless run, there's definitely a lot of things I would love to see in there. Another one would be freaking trait balance. Holy crap. I think every weapon in Returnal can be very, very good, but I think some traits are way better than others. Like in the Pyroshell case, I think the biggest liability for a trait is the bouncy projectiles. One is because the environment, like I said, like if you just look around all these rooms, there's no ceiling and there's very few walls, which means bouncing projectiles around is very hard to do because wherever it bounces, it's basically going to go off the map. In most cases, especially if you get bouncy 3, which means it will bounce 3 times before it settles on a spot, which really makes it hard to use the bounce to get it anywhere other than, like, off the map. You just want to hit enemies directly, basically. It's like anti-synergy, and also if you pair bouncy projectiles with, like, seeking flares only works when the projectile explodes. So if it bounces off the map, you never get that one either. But even ignoring the fact that these maps, a lot of them times have no walls and never have ceilings, basically. I still think bouncy projectiles is not very good compared to some of the other traits you can get. Bouncy projectiles has an added bonus, which the game doesn't tell you about, where if you bounce it off of surfaces or walls, you get... Yeah, it doesn't bad. You get... every single time the projectile bounces, it releases a homing projectile from the point of its bounce. That is good. And that's why I say that Pyroshell is such a homing-oriented weapon, because there's bouncy projectiles, there's auxiliary projectiles, and there's seeking flares. All 3 of those are basically they home. But the bouncing projectile itself doesn't home, but whenever it bounces, the additional projectiles it releases do home. The problem with those is that 1, they're not very strong, the bouncing projectiles, and 2, their homing is a little wonky. Like, the homing on auxiliary projectiles and on seeking flares is insanely strong. Like, it will really home. Whereas bouncing projectiles, I feel like if they're not already pretty close to the enemy, then the homing won't trigger. And if it does trigger, it's not very strong. So you're trading the ability to bounce it around and get a bunch of homing projectiles, which is cool in concept, but they don't tend to do much. And in exchange, now you have a bunch of bouncing projectiles that I can't like plant my bombs next to the enemy and let them explode. I have to actually hit them with it or bounce them into them, which is a long way of saying, yeah, bouncing projectiles I don't think is very good. And I hope that traits in like I don't need every trait to be universally as applicable as every other trait, but I want to be able to say, yes, there are situations where I could definitely see me wanting this trait. There are some, but, you know, some guns just have traits that don't work nearly as well as others. Like another big one, the Hollow Seeker. The Hollow Seeker has two traits that it summons like a portal, and the portal summons a shot. One is Portal Beam, and the other one is I forgot what it's called. It's Portal or something. But point is, like, one shoots. I'm just gonna call it Portal Projectiles. I forgot what it's called. But one's a Portal Beam, and one's like a Portal Projectile. And the higher level of the trait basically means you can shoot fewer shots before, like the number of shots you have to shoot with a Hollow Seeker is less before the portal shows up. The problem is Portal Beam scales with all your damage buffs. Like if you have more damage, if your weapon has more damage, I think even if Portal Beam is a higher level, and I'm not sure that one, it does more damage. The problem with the other one, the other Portal one, is that the damage never goes up. For some reason, every shot of the other one, I think it's like 2 damage per shot. It's something absurdly small, and that never goes up. And like if you're looking at like the damage values on screen now, like how much damage I'm doing to the enemies, 2 damage per shot might as well not exist at this point in the tower. Never mind on like floor 10, 20, 30. It doesn't do anything. It's like, and I'm pretty sure that's actually not on purpose. I'm pretty sure that's just broken. I think they probably meant for that to do more damage, and they just didn't. I think it's just a scaling problem. There's other problems like that, like the mine and the grenade blast, or the secondary fires also have problems with damage scaling. Like they don't fully scale off of your weapon. Well, I think they don't scale off your weapon's damage at all, so it's a problem. Anyway, yeah, I think there's just, you know, a good number of balanced things, basically for every weapon, that have certain traits that are just not even situationally useful over like their counterparts. That I hope that's closed a bit. I was hoping that Returnal would address that before they stopped supporting the game, but unfortunately they didn't. Also some weird behaviors with high rate of fire weapons, like if you use Rising Pitch on the carbine, once the rate of fire goes incredibly high, the damage for each bullet is way lower. I'm assuming there's something intentional about that, but I just don't know what, because like what's the point of firing super fast if they make the bullet damage very, very low? Like the first few bullets that come out against an enemy do full damage, and then suddenly just starts doing way less, like less than half in some cases. Excuse me. Yeah. Same thing with like burst fire on the sidearm. If you have like burst fire 3, maybe even burst fire 2, and with a high rate of fire on the sidearm, like basically a fully leveled up sidearm with like low burst fire 3, the burst fire starts actually nerfing the damage you do. Yeah, sorry, I'll cut these out. Like the pauses were much longer in real life. I'm cutting them out. But yeah, it's just some weird things that just make certain things not behave correctly. Portal Turret, that's the name of the Hollow Seeker one. I think Portal Turret is by far like the most egregious one, where it's just like something's not right there, because like it just doesn't do damage. Whereas Portal Beam does a lot of damage on the Hollow Seeker. It's just weird. Alright. Run's been going decently now. As long as you ignore the fact that I'm not building my score very well. Yeah, both of these are pretty good. Reactive Stabilizers is really useful for not making you lose, like... If you're gonna get hit, if you get from like certain hits, and getting knocked down for it can be pretty bad. Reactive Stabilizers makes that much less likely to happen. And the other one, the adrenaline, high levels of adrenaline make your cooldown of your alt fire faster. That's also good for obvious reasons, but alt fire in this gun isn't that important, because it's Tracker Swarm, and Tracker Swarm is good. I like it, but in this case specifically, because I have auxiliary projectiles, Tracker Swarm isn't really doing anything that my Pyroshell caster isn't already doing. It's basically just like a burst of homing shots, which my base gun already does at an extremely high rate of fire. So it's not super important if that goes on cooldown. Yeah, still electing to take the fights. Especially since every single time I go for something that's going to give me a Disgorger, it's going to hurt me. Yeah, you can see I was trying to DPS him down, it wasn't working, obviously. It was a mistake on my end. I should have killed the tower faster before these malformed enemies started showing up. Because now, I activated the purple shots for some of these Trigozoids. That's another enemy behavior thing to be aware of. Purple shots for Trigozoids suck. I mean, you can dodge to them despite their color being purple, but the way they fill up a room, they move super slow and they bounce off walls and shit. So it can just make moving around, and they last a while. It can just make moving around really hard without getting hit. It's better to leave a Trigozoid alone until you're ready to kill it. Similar reasoning for, like, it's better not to stun like a Severed or Mycomorph until you're ready to kill it. But it's not a stun that makes a Trigozoid change to a purple shot. It's just a health threshold. It seems to be, at least. I think once they're around 80% health, 75, 80% health, then their attack changes from the blue shots, which are much easier to deal with, to the purple shots, and then it just stays purple forever. So because I shot a bunch of them earlier and I triggered them all to go below health, like below the health threshold, even though they healed back up, it didn't matter. All of their attacks ended up becoming purple, which is just like a mess. Yeah, in that case I got to use the item twice. Because I have the parasite that has like a 20% chance of not losing an item on use. So I actually got a net gain despite the fact that I lost one of them because of... Yeah, let's not talk about what just happened there. Can't live that down. But yeah. God, I don't know how many shields I've lost just because of the item pickup stupid parasite. It's really annoying. I haven't, unless I missed it, I haven't seen a single item to force myself to lose all my parasites. Which I'm not even sure if I would take at this point. I mean, I gotta get rid of the item, but like, I think I have the protection parasite still. So like, if I lose my extra protection, then things are gonna start doing insane damage to me. That, like, insanely more damage. It's not just a small amount of damage more, so it's just something I have to be careful of. Like, picking up items sucks, but so does losing all that protection. And I'm still at the point that getting hit by an enemy isn't like a... You lost 90% of your HP all at once. Yeah. Important to try to be really aware of the minimap. Like, the minimap is such an important tool for, not getting ambushed by enemies. Especially Severed or Mycomorphs that can teleport. Or like the Machinas, the flying orb enemies that can also teleport around. Or even dogs. Kerberon and Kerberonix, because they can jump up and down. And sometimes they jump up behind you and you don't realize it. And the game doesn't have any like obvious tells other than the fact that the minimap tracks them for you. You can just see how much damage. Very strong gun. And it's time for Algus. Again. So like, yeah, at this point the boss fight isn't changing at all. Yeah, there's no way I'm gonna take that because of the bouncing projectiles. Although Horizontal Barrage 3 is very nice, but it's not worth it. But yeah, the Algus attack patterns are exactly the same at this point as they were last time, because both of these are in the Algus Infinity form, as the game calls it. It does slightly more, and the extra damage it does isn't that much, it's slightly more damage. It does take longer to kill every time, though. But even so, for now, I mean, this is like the Pyroshell is not the craziest DPS weapon that you could get. I don't know actually what has the highest DPS potential. in the game. But it's definitely not the Pyroshell. The Pyroshell is very strong for like all the homing things I mentioned. And if it wasn't for the need for getting melee kills all the time, you know, a lot of other weapons would have a lot more like tower utility. I mean, I think they all have tower utility, but you just have to be willing to accept that some of them are going to get melee kills. Like, some of them are going to set you up to get a melee kill more easily than others. One, because either they make you do more damage, well, the Electropylon driver does, or because they allow you to delay to such a point that you can get the melee kills. I don't know what the highest DPS might be like Coil Spine Shredder, possibly. Possibly the thermogenic launcher, the rocket launcher. Item, yeah, I found Silver Lattice. Again, I should have destroyed an item from my inventory before I bought that, because now I'm going to have to destroy it now and then pick it up, which is going to hurt me. But if I done that in the opposite order, then I wouldn't take damage, which I'm going to take once I decide what to dump. With Silver Lattice is such a good item. Makes attacks from Frost Severed, Frost Turrets, Micromorphs, some malfunctions where they summon ice. All that stuff affects you not at all. I mean, they can still hit you, but the slowdown effects don't work anymore. Yeah, sorry for the freaking pauses. I left them in just to show, just for my own sake, to remember when they happen. I don't know why I left them in, but I cut them out, like, broadly. Still not electing to go for that room. I mean, I'm still not a max multiplier or anything. It's not like I need anything from there at this point. Only important item I think I don't have yet that I'm missing is a progenitor egg, which makes, you know, any parasite I find from that point forward have a better positive effect for a lot of the positive effects. Some of them it doesn't matter. Which sucks because I'm already like maxed out on parasite space. I think I actually maxed out. So I found all these parasites and without the progenitor egg, so I didn't get the positive benefits. And finding a progenitor egg now won't suddenly make them better. You have to find it before you get the parasite. The main one that, well, the main two that matters for is the chance to not use an item. Chance to not use, like, lose an item usage on use. I think that changes from 20 to 25%. I keep missing because of these damn guys. From 20 to 25%, and then the other would be the protection one. Like, I have a parasite that's giving me 15% protection. That would go to 20% protection. Might not sound like much, but that can be a pretty substantial difference. Because again, the calculation for how protection actually reduces damage means that the more protection you have, more protection has an outsized effect on how much damage you take. The difference between 10 and 20% protection is a lot less than the difference between 80 and 90% protection in terms of how much damage it reduces. You reduce a lot more on the latter, on the 80 to 90%, versus like the protection starts snowballing its effect once you get very high, but at low levels you don't really notice it that much. At high levels it completely nullifies damage. Not completely, but close enough. The dream is to have both the 20% protection parasites, because there's two different ones, depending on what it is. One that's 2% per room that you clear, which is basically just a free 20%. And the other one is 20% if you have it with a progenitor egg. The issue is that you're bound to lose it eventually because of the way the tower works, where you're forced to take parasites every now and then. And if you're forced to take parasites, and you already have 5, it's going to randomly dump one, and so you're eventually going to lose them. And also, sometimes you're just forced to take really bad parasites. Like, I think I got a run once where the parasite choices, both of their down effects were the same, like, bad effect, where it would just reduce my protection, which really sucks. So yeah, eventually you're just going to get screwed with the parasites in the tower. Which I guess at that point is when you have to just be really good at knowing how to handle each room, every different layout of all the different rooms, what the best spots to stand are, like how to avoid taking counter hit damage, how to like be aware of your surroundings, so, like you're not gonna like stuff like that, not get hit from behind, not put yourself in the how to not like engage battle in such ways that you're gonna put yourself in a situation where it's gonna be really hard to not take damage. Because get high enough in the tower, no matter what, eventually if you get high enough in the tower, no matter what, everything will one-shot you. You know, because damage goes up and up and up and up, and you can only make your protection so high. You can make it you can make it crazy high, but not infinitely high. So eventually, it's just going to be up to the player to just not get hit, or to have shields ready. That being said, this run, you know, considering I haven't really been playing that much, I'm decently happy with the way it's going. I think it's a respectable score, and yeah, showing. I mean, this isn't. There are other forms of the Pyroshell that can be really, really strong. Things with Simmering Explosion, or things with Seeking Flares. The Simmering Explosion one's pretty funny because it covers your field of vision with a bunch of like cloudy spots, but those cloudy spots do so much damage to enemies, which is fun. Which is another pretty fun one. I'm taking a lot of hits here. Luckily, it's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but me taking this many hits isn't hurting me that badly because I keep getting melee kills, and that extra 25% protection from melee kills is making it so my protection is way higher. Without that 25% protection, if I was taking all these hits, then it would be a lot worse. I mean, granted, I'm probably only taking the hits partially because I'm like going out of my way to get the melee hits, but you know, I can't not care about score. You know, I'm trying not to care about it as much. I have to at least try to get some score in there. So. Almost at max multiplier, which is 100. Yep, still skipping it. But yeah, if your only objective is to get to a higher phase, like you just want to see how high the tower you can possibly climb, which is totally valid. Like what's the highest where I can possibly make it, and if that's all you care about, then I recommend you save your keys for those rooms where you have a choice, because then the next room will always be a non-enemy room that has like 3 items, and that way you can. God, this is not going well. That way you can skip having to deal with like these enemy rooms. Honestly, I probably shouldn't be going for these rooms anymore, because these rooms are kind of. Yeah, I forgot about that explosion. These rooms are kind of traps. Because not because of the enemy I fought, I just didn't fight it very well, but because going back just leads you to a horrible situation. Luckily, this enemy did drop a full heal, so what I should do is grab all the items I can in the room before I grab the full heal, because I'm gonna keep taking damage every time I take an item. Just deciding which item to drop. All my items have some amount of utility, so I wasn't sure which one. I think I still don't have the progenitor egg. Yeah. Get hit there, and then go ahead and grab the heal. Yeah, I think I was at the time considering if I should use the Disclosure before going back inside the room. I opted not to, which is probably fine, because this room does have gyropods, which are good enemies for melee kills. Also, the automaton, that big guy, is one of the less annoying big enemies, I think. He can't really sneak up on you. He has a jump attack to close distances or get up slopes and stuff. But on his own, he's actually not that. He's easier to ignore than like a Severed, for instance, or some of the flying enemies, which are just so hard to ignore. Or if you're gonna be running around the way I am, it's hard to ignore those guys. Yeah, got to use 2 protections. I think it's been like literally a year since I've done a room like this. So I looked at it for a while and was like, I don't know. I just froze for a second. Like, what's the best way to go through this room? Because you can't dash in this room. Yeah, I don't even care about the obolites that much anymore. I'm just checking the major points of interest to see if there's anything I want. That item I left behind is fine, but I just don't feel like thinking about what to dump if I want to dump anything for it, so I just leave it behind. And then a Hollow Seeker, which I cannot use. And then what just happened there, which we don't have to talk about. God, the counter hits. I allow myself to live in the imaginary world where counter hit isn't something that I have to worry about. And look what happens. And like, again, you can see me really trying to focus down a single one because I know how the purple attacks work. And like, you can see the other ones in the room are still firing the blue bullets because I haven't heard them. Or at least I haven't heard them enough. And now, again, because these guys have spawned, which I'm getting hit a lot, but I think my decision making, I think, is good here. Of how I'm going about it. Me not being able to dodge things or me getting hit by counter hits is me being, like, that's not a good decision, like me standing the way I was, but the decision to how I prioritize enemies is pretty good, I think. Like, killing the Trichozoids as I could before the two Titanops, Proto-Titanops spawned in was good. And then once the Proto-Titanops spawned in, I handled them because the other Trichozoids still had their easy to deal with blue attack. And then I went back to dealing with the Trichozoids. Because I don't want to be dealing with Trichozoids while Titanops are like dashing around and trying to attack me. Titanops are way more like mobily aggressive than like an automaton is, for instance, so it's a lot harder to ignore them. They jump around they can jump just like the automaton, but they also have like these charge attacks. They summon these waves that pierce through walls and shit all the time. So it's just something that better just deal with them. Yeah, good thing those don't slow me down anymore. You can see I'm really trying to get my melee kills. Because obviously I can burst these guys down pretty quickly. I mean, that guy's weak point's not exposed, but like once the weak point is exposed, you can kind of just, like that, just kill him instantly. I actually got an enemy to show up that time. Level 19. Alright, and move on. I don't know what the next weapon is after this. The one weapon assuming I still do more of these before Saros comes out, which I might. I mean, I enjoyed doing this again, and there's still 6 other weapons I haven't done a video like this for. I don't know what the next weapon would be though. The one weapon I think will give me the most trouble. Actually, I'm not sure if it will. I was gonna say a Hollow Seeker, but now that I think about it, if you have the right Hollow Seeker, it can be pretty strong. And if I'm willing to forego melee kills, then I can survive a pretty long time. And since like my score isn't really something I mean, I'm not gonna beat my top score. not with the way I'm playing. But the Hollow Seeker, is definitely not a high DPS weapon, but at least there are definitely weapons that do more DPS than it. But it can be really good for hitting things behind cover, letting it do the work for you, poisoning enemies and hiding for a while. It has a lot of useful tools to it, and some not so useful ones. That's why it's really dependent on what traits you actually end up getting. Yeah, the Pyroshell is just like a pretty good... it's pretty decent damage, very decent, extremely decent at making sure you actually hit the enemy. Because of the way explosions work and all the homing. The Dreadbound is one I'm not looking forward to using that much. I used to like the Dreadbound a lot, but I stopped liking it once I discovered the interaction between expanding shots and explosive shots, expanding shards and explosive shards, where it's definitely bugged, but the size of the explosion is bigger than basically anything else in the game. Maybe even bigger than a fully charged Doombringer level 3. It's insane. It basically just does a lot of damage to everything. It's not good for getting melee kills, but it is good at clearing rooms, like holy shit. And I think that's pretty lame. It's definitely an unintentional interaction. I mean, the weapon's still very good without that, but that is specific interaction I'm not a fan of. As much as it's fun to mess around with it a couple times, but like for like actual game balance, I don't like it. It's not great for getting a high score, but it's very good for just killing shit. Getting a high score is not good for it because it just tends to kill everything. Like, you can't really control what it destroys. It just destroys everything. Until enemy health gets so high that you stop doing any significant damage. It also messes with the visual of your little adrenaline bullets that come out of you too. Yeah. I popped a Disgorger. I'm still taking quite a lot of hits, but luckily, at the very least, popping the Disgorger, because every time you use an item increases your protection, well, at least because of the artifacts I have, my protection goes up by 10%. It just ran out when I took that hit, before I took that hit, but a lot of other hits I was taking were heavily, heavily reduced, because I had the high protection. Yeah, you can see I'm not even looking at the items anymore. I know like those malformed enemies basically always drop Disgorgers, but I'm just leaving. I don't feel like going there fishing for it, taking a hit, because picking up an item takes a hit, and then making my multiplier go down. I'd rather just leave. I do like the way multiplier works, by the way. I like that you're incentivized to keep moving. Except in rooms like this, which, honestly, rooms like this, if they do an endless mode, maybe they should make rooms like this a little bit more... Like, they can still put, like, little dodge mechanics in it, but I think maybe they should make them move a little faster. Some of them are way too slow moving. But I like that the game encourages you to be fast, and don't sit around in a room forever, even after you clear it. And that, like, picking up an item or whatever slightly increases the duration, but you can't be sitting around forever in a room, or your multiplier is going to start going down. I do like that mechanic. Yeah, like a restroom like this that's super short is fine. In some other obstacle rooms could be fine, but I just think some of them take too long. Because like these rooms are like where the actual, like the fun action is. Any room where you have to like fight actual enemies. Yeah, so a lot of dogs. Yeah, a malformed dog is a lot harder than a regular dog. They have a lot more health than a regular dog, and they can't be stunned, which means you can't get their weak point exposed. Also, it's for the worst variant, the basic Kerberonics. I think the waste and the frost Kerberonics, in most ways, are easier to deal with than the basic Kerberonics, which is what that malformed enemy is based off of. The basic Kerberonics. Mainly the shot that it does from its mouth, the stream of bullets. I think is a lot more annoying to deal with than the waste one and the frost one. emptying my thing so that now I pierce shield. So you can see I didn't have to get close to them. And yeah, again, important to try to deal with these enemies before these flying abyssal Strixia. I forgot what these guys are called. I think they're called the abyssal Strixia. There's the Strixia Matriarch and there's the abyssal Strixia. I'm pretty sure this is the abyssal Strixia, and the Strixia Matriarch is the one that looks more like the actual tentacly flying small dude. Anyway, yeah. I mean, this gun's also pretty good at hiding behind cover because the homing shots, the curve so damn much. Like, look at that. The guy on the right just dies because of the way they turned. I always look down, or I try to always look down when I take the teleporters. Because even if you're standing on teleporter, at least it seems to be that way, and at least it definitely used to, I'm pretty sure it's still that way. If you're looking at a grapple point, even if you're standing on teleporter and you press triangle, you will grapple onto that grapple point instead of teleporting out, which is usually bad. It's just a good way to waste time and make your multiplier go down. So to avoid that, I started just looking down when I'm ready to teleport out of the room so that I don't accidentally grapple to a point. At least for the rooms that have timers, like enemy rooms, whatever. Yeah, for some reason, counter hitting on Algus most of the time doesn't actually make the counter bullets angle towards you. There, I didn't plan that well. I put myself in a situation where it was hard not to get hit. Yeah, in my video on the enemies, I said that Algus does have a weak point on the eye. I'm not actually sure I believe that anymore. I did test it before, and it was definitely looked like it was taking more damage when I shot the eye, but now, especially because there's no damage numbers on Algus, I'm not sure if that's true. It's also makes me sort of doubt myself, because like my homing shots aim for Algus's like the humanoid body underneath the eye, rather than the eye itself. I'm actually, so it's possible I was just wrong in that video. I could be still right that is weak point damage, but it's not something I went way too far on my way to verify, especially since there were no damage numbers displayed, so I didn't try that hard to figure that out. I'm still pretty sure that it does do more damage if you hit the eye, but I'm not 100% sure. Oh yeah, the non-permanent malfunction, hostiles heals from attacks or on attack doesn't really matter. And getting rid of it is easy enough. I just have to find a room that allows me to get melee kills easily. Oh, sorry. Pretty sure the pauses are mostly done. Or they will be soon. There might be one more. Yeah, I realize I'm fully upgraded, like, on stat-wise. So, there's not a whole lot more for me to spend my money on, so I might as well just look at the other items to see if there's anything I want. Another parasite room. And yeah, I think you'll look, yeah, I'm looking at the parasites I have to figure out which one, just to take a mental note of which ones I lose. There's one I definitely don't want to lose, which is this one, this protection one, and there's one I probably don't want to lose, which is that one, the consumable one. The other, well, the suffering damage from picking out items would be the best one to lose, but I can't choose. Yeah, so this one on the left is 100% a no-go, that's awful, and this one on the right is fine. I don't really care about it, but the down effect doesn't really matter. And the one I ended up losing was the one that makes it, actually it wasn't, oh yeah, the one I ended up losing actually was also a good one, is one that makes it so it takes one less hit to get up adrenaline levels. So that sucks, because I still have a down effect that makes me take one more. So now, instead of taking 3 hits to increase my adrenaline level, now I'm going up to 4. Default is 3. But they were bouncing out each other before, but now it's going to take, 20 kills to get from 0 to full adrenaline, whereas before I was taking 15. And yeah, I made the mistake of leaving these guys alive. I'm hiding right here, And I'm assuming the bullets won't reach me, but yeah, those curve in such a way that they end up getting me there. Again, this is why I should follow my own advice and deal with these enemies in such a way without staggering them. At least, if I'm going to stagger them, kill them quickly. Yeah, that was my mistake. And finally, I got the Murmuring Cocoon, which ideally you get that early in a run, but I'm definitely going to dump something for it. I just looking at everything else in the room first. And again, I make the mistake of fabricating it before I dump something from my inventory. Oh wait, no. Maybe I already lost something from inventory. Oh, I think the permanent malfunction I got from Algus made me lose something. Anyway, there. Now I'm going to get my melee kills to get rid of this. There, that's all I needed to get rid of the non-permanent malfunction. This is also a good room. $250,000. Wow, 250,000 points per melee kill. Versus, I'm actually not sure. I think it would have been like 500 or 50,000 points if I just killed them with my weapon. It's a massive difference. Excuse me. Yeah, and that's why, like, you know, five times the score for those enemies. It's not quite that difference of points. Like, it's not 5 times more for the harder enemies, but it's still 2,000, or it's still 200,000 extra points, no matter what. It is basically how it works out. So, like, I'm pretty sure it's 200,000. It might be slightly more or less than that, but this is around $200,000. 200,000. I keep saying dollars. 200,000 extra points for every enemy you melee kill in the air versus just killing it with your weapon. So it matters. Getting melee kills really matters, especially for enemies that don't give you that many points to begin with. So, like, to kill all of them with your gun, whereas you could have been getting way more points. Like that enemy there just gave me 100,000 because I killed it with a gun. Versus a melee kill on a much easier enemy gives me 2.5 times more points than that. Yeah, spawning in a room like this. Sometimes I swear this room spawns me directly on top of these guys. It didn't this time, but like, and they just instantly explode, which is always great fun. Yeah. What I should be doing is staying on, like, around these pillars, but I you know, saying that now in hindsight, it's hard for me to think that way when I'm like, just trying not to get hit and not thinking, like, where's the best place to stop moving for a second. Because, like, the bottom floor, the broken automatons weren't that close to it, so it would take them a while to walk to it. And then, like, go on top of me and explode. So, like, now I'm taking all these hits from the flying enemies because I wasn't smart enough to just stand in better spots. God, that was pretty bad. What I should do now is use a shield item, because enemies are doing a lot of damage to me. Yeah. Oh yeah, using a key hurts me too. I like to take the door. You can see the damage does to me is very little, but still, it's annoying. I like to use the door to see if I can get some health, which I think it actually pays off a little bit. Like, the damage I took for using a key and the damage I took for picking up the item, I think are less than the healing I'm going to get. I don't get that much healing here, but I think I get a little bit. I still should be using a shield. Yeah, so there's a little bit of healing. I think that's already more than I had. And then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. Unfortunately, I don't have any heal proficiency, like additional heal proficiency, so the amount it heals me is only so much. I really should be using a shield. It's very silly of me not to be doing that. Luckily, there's another heal here. I'm not sure if this one might be a forced resin, so it might actually be a shield for me. Yeah, that's a resin. Oh no, it's not. That's a Sisyphus, my bad. I thought it looked like a resin. A resin would have been better because then would have given me a shield. But in some instances, resins are forced. Most of the time, you only get a resin if you're at max health and you get healing otherwise. But there's some, and there's like a room, like a restroom in the tower too. Sometimes resins are just forced on you, whether or not you have max health. Anyway, well, I must have just got a resin anyway, because now I have a resin shield I wasn't noticing. So that's good. Yep. Some decent enemies to melee, but I'm going through them way too slow. I'm trying so hard to get points. Yeah. And yeah, at least I was able to kill that one. There's another one wandering around. But like gyropods on their own aren't that bad, even if there's a lot of them, because of the way enemy attack patterns work in this game. For everything except the Kerberon, enemies can't both. Actually, it might not be true for big enemies. I said in the video, but I'm not sure about how big enemies work. But for small enemies that tend to spawn in like waves, you'll never see except for the Kerberon, two enemies will not use the same attack at the same time. So, and because the gyropod only has two different types of attacks, the one where they glow blue and shoot directly at you, or the one where they glow red, for a long time they glow red, so it gives you a lot of time, where they glow red and then do a sweeping attack across the room. If you know where those two attacks are happening in the arena at any time, then you can be sure that every other gyropod in the room is not attacking you at all. Same, like, if you look on screen now, these Strixia, one of them's always homing a beam on me, either readying it or doing the attack, and then one of them is doing like the blue wave, like the blue bullet attack, and there's only two of them now at this point. But you'll never see an instance of the enemies of more than that at the same time. And just knowing that turrets work the same way, turrets only ever have one. Yeah, I fell off. Turrets only have one attack, so if you see one turret readying an attack, no other turret in the room is doing anything. Especially since I've never seen a room that has more than one type of turret, I don't think. So yeah, you don't have to worry about it. But it's just really good to know that, especially for the small enemies that tend to swarm in more than one. I don't know, the medium and large enemies might not work that way, but I'm pretty sure they do. At least the Kerberonics, the large dogs, I'm pretty sure work that same way too. But yeah, it just means that if you know where one type of attack is coming from, that type of attack is not coming from anywhere else in the room. If enemies could overlap attacks, ooh boy. Which, from what I've seen of Saros, I think they can, which will be fun, crazy in its own way. I might be wrong, but I think the inability for enemies to overlap their attack in this game might not be true anymore. To overlap the same exact attack in this game might not be true anymore in Saros. And yeah, the Kerberon I say is an exception to little dogs, because the little dogs seem to not care. Like, they all seem to be able to do whatever attack they feel like doing at any time. Which, they only have two attacks, but I think they can overlap them. Right. Yep. The drones, for me, are, I'm not great at them. The way their attacks, especially the missile attack more than anything, works, it just makes me take so many extra hits. Also, if you don't finish them off, there's a good chance they'll do like this dive bomb, like suicide attack, which can be really dangerous. So yeah, it's just something you have to be careful of. I really should be using a shield. So that one's dead. Don't know what the second one is. I don't know why I'm not using a shield. I'm like asking to die. Anyway, luckily, 3 resins. Like, this is a room where it's forced resin. Only one of them really matters. Because I'm already at max health. Okay. Yeah, a room that spawns dogs in it. In this case, I'm pretty sure these are the frost Kerberonics. Frost Kerberonics and basic Kerberonics, and the dogs have a chance to spawn with a shield. The waste Kerberonics, the ones that shoot a shotgun blast, I think never spawn with shields. But yeah, it's just like another thing to worry about. Like if you have enemies like the dogs that go around with a shield on them, it's just like shit. I need a way to deal with those shields quickly. Yep. And then here's my fatal mistake. For some reason, I went up here and then I dashed right away without waiting for the attack, and I died. But yeah, no, that was a fun run. You know, I like the Pyroshell. I like every weapon in the game. The Dreadbound's only one I have like an issue with, but only because of like an unintentional exploit on it. And I can just avoid using the exploit, but it does mean like that specific interaction I can't use anymore. But anyway, yeah. I don't remember what my score was, like 40-something million or something. 50? 60? How high? Alright, almost 60 million. Anyway. Yeah, my actual top score makes me rank 43 on the leaderboard, but not my real score. Like, not the score I just got. That's reflective of my actual top score, 247 million you see right there. But yeah, no, that was really fun. Maybe I'll do more of these before Saros comes out. But anyway, thanks for watching. Appreciate it.